Heartwarming discovery, Billionaire uncovers abandoned baby in bin, revealing an incredible life. Jack Montgomery had seen it all. From the dusty streets of his childhood in rural Ohio to the gleaming towers of the city, he climbed to the top. Now, a self-made billionaire, Jack had everything: a luxurious penthouse with a skyline view, cars that could turn heads, and the means to help change lives. But on this bright autumn afternoon, his life would take an unexpected turn that would challenge everything he believed about success. As he meandered through a neighborhood far removed from his opulent world, vibrant murals adorned the walls, each telling stories of struggle, resilience, and hope. The air was filled with the sounds of distant sirens and happy families, creating a stark contrast to the ragged buildings surrounding him. Jack felt a twinge in his chest. He had always been drawn to helping the less fortunate, but nothing prepared him for what he was about to find. Amidst the shadows of a dumpster, he spotted a small, fragile bundle. His heart raced as he crept closer, only to reveal a baby girl, no older than a few weeks. Her tiny face was crinkled and vulnerable, her features smeared with grime and tears. Panic gripped Jack. He wrapped her in his own jacket, holding her desperate warmth against his chest as fear surged through him. Why was this innocent child here? The rush to the hospital was a blur. Sirens screamed, lights flashed, and all he could think about was the life within his arms. The weight of privilege pressed down on him. How could such a system allow a baby to end up in a dumpster? By the time they reached the hospital, Jack had never felt so powerless. Doctors rushed in, and Jack's gut clenched. All the money in the world wouldn't save this child if the system continued to fail others like her. Once the doctors assured him the baby was stable, they informed him about the young mother Sarah, a war veteran wrestling with PTSD, now homeless after losing her job. Jack's heart sank further. The very people he sought to help were locked out, discarded by society. He knew he had to act. He felt an electric sense of responsibility. This child's life and her mother's struggles echoed his own past. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Jack established a community center focused on helping veterans and single parents like Sarah. Excitement coursed through him as hope ignited in the community. But just as they were gaining momentum, news came of a funding cut that threatened to dismantle everything they had built. His friends scoffed at his unfiltered altruism, calling it idealistic and naive. Jack's heart raced in frustration. What use was success if he could not uplift those who needed it most? As the financial deadline loomed and despair threatened to engulf the community center, he reflected on his own upbringing, the sacrifices made for him to succeed. In a poignant community meeting, he shared his journey, urging those around him to rise together. He could see his words land, faces lit up with the spark of determination. But as the threat to their dreams hung over them, the question loomed larger in Jack's mind: how far would he go to save not just the center but the very lives it touched? The clock was ticking, and with it, a fight for justice was about to unfold. The scent of damp autumn leaves filled the air as Jack stood outside the community center, the impending storm looming overhead mirroring the turmoil inside him. With each moment, the gravity of their situation became painfully apparent. The center had started as a spark of hope, but now it felt like a candle flickering in the wind. His hand clenched around the fraying strap of the leather satchel he always carried. Inside were plans, sketches, and a sense of urgency that had driven him since that fateful day. He imagined little Amelia, the baby he had saved, and her mother, Sarah. Their lives depended on the resources the center provided. Jack was determined. He couldn't let their stories end in despair. Driven by a newfound sense of purpose, Jack dove deep into action. He gathered a team of volunteers, each one as passionate about the cause as he was. Their evenings blended into late nights filled with brainstorming sessions, fundraising events, and endless calls to potential donors. There was an unspoken bond tethering them together, a shared vision of rekindled hope, but time slipped away like sand through fingers. With each passing day, the financial crisis loomed larger, suffocating the air in the center's cramped meeting room. Jack could see the worry etched on the volunteers' faces. They had invested so much sleepless nights, heart and soul, and the thought of failure felt unbearable. It made his heart ache. "Jack, maybe we should consider scaling back," one of the team members suggested, her voice barely above a whisper, like it was sacrilege to even speak it. "We can still help, just in a smaller way." Crushing disappointment weighed heavily on Jack. Scaling back felt like letting defeat creep in. "No," he said, with a firmness that surprised even him. "We can't allow that. If we do, then it all collapses." The steel in his voice seemed to rally the others, and determination sparked in their eyes once again. As the week wore on, Jack's resolve tested its limits. One evening, after a particularly draining meeting, he wandered the quiet streets surrounding the center. The vibrant murals that once inspired him now seemed to mock him, as if echoing failures that felt too close. But then he caught sight of a group of kids playing in a nearby park, their laughter slicing through his doubt. It was a beautiful sound, a reminder of why he was fighting. After spending a few moments soaking it in, he returned to the center, his heart a little lighter. With a renewed spirit, he kicked off an ambitious crowdfunding campaign. He recorded heartfelt videos, shared stories of hope, and highlighted the resilience of veterans like Sarah. Days turned into a blur of messages, donations, and community engagement. Support rolled in from people who had faced their own struggles, all inspired by Jack's commitment. It was remarkable. Strangers offered their help, their stories weaving a rich tapestry of hope around the center. Yet even as the funds began to trickle in, Jack felt the pressure mounting. With the deadline fast approaching, he still feared it might be too late. When the final day arrived, he gathered everyone for a last-minute community meeting, his heart pounding. "It's not just about saving this center," he said, surveying the faces that had become like family to him. "It's about saving a chance for families like Sarah's to rise. We have to believe. We have to fight." The room erupted into applause, yet doubt clung heavily in the air. Just as Jack was about to ask for a show of hands to see if they should push harder, his phone buzzed violently in his pocket. He pulled it out, staring at the screen as the number read, "Anonymous." A flood of emotions washed over him. Could this be the miracle? With his heart racing, Jack answered. "Hello?" But what he heard on the other end would shake him to his core and change everything he thought he knew about funding, loyalty, and the people around him. Jack's breath caught as he pressed the phone closer to his ear. A voice filled with authority, but tinged with a hint of kindness, filled the line. "Mr. Cornwell, this is Emily Hart from the Center for Community Renewal. We've been watching your crowdfunding campaign closely," she began. "We want to discuss potential support." His mind raced. Had they been impressed by their efforts? Were they willing to help? What kind of support? Jack managed to stammer. Even as excitement bubbled beneath the surface, she paused for just a moment, and the silence felt heavy with implication. "We're able to offer a grant. It won't cover everything, but it can give you some breathing room." Her tone changed slightly, taking on an urgent edge. "But I need to be clear, your application is of great interest, yet we will need transparency. We want to ensure the funds go directly to those who need them most." Jack's heart raced, hope igniting a light in him. "We can do that. I promise. We're all dedicated to this community. We'll allocate every penny where it's most needed." "Thank you, Jack." Emily's voice softened. "And, just so you're aware, the grant comes with stipulations. You'll have to report on progress, and we may conduct audits. It's a way to ensure everything stays above board." "That's fair," Jack replied, confidence spilling into his words. If they could save lives, why wouldn't he welcome the scrutiny? They discussed further details, and Jack found himself jotting down notes, ideas sparking like fireworks. Potential plans unfolded in his mind as if the phone call had opened a floodgate of possibilities. By the end of their conversation, he felt like they had solid ground under their feet once more. After hanging up, he gathered the volunteers, their faces a mix of fatigue and apprehension. "I have news," he proclaimed, forcing a smile despite the exhaustion that weighed him down. "We might just have a grant. But we'll need to work even harder." Gasps filled the cramped room, and eyes widened with curiosity. "How much?" Someone blurted out, and Jack felt a surge of adrenaline. They could face their challenges together, stronger than ever. "I can't give you exact figures yet," he replied, "but it's a lifeline. If we stay organized and committed, we can expand our services. We can truly make a difference." As he spoke, Jack saw the flicker of hope reignite in their eyes. He outlined new strategies for their community service and touched on outreach programs that could help families like Sarah S. who had fallen through the cracks. As he wrapped up the meeting, he felt as though the winds had changed. Hope had always been delicate, but now it stood tall, unyielding, facing the storm. As they finalized ambitious plans, he recognized a spark in the volunteers he hadn't seen for days. "Remember the phone call," he said, his voice lifting. "This is our chance. Together, we can create something that stands the test of time." Later that night, as Jack walked home, the city felt renewed. The air was sharp and crisp, and he relished the busy sounds around him. Yet, as he passed by the park, a foreboding sense crept in. Something about the evening felt strange, almost surreal, as if the universe was shifting. When he reached his apartment, he found a familiar piece of paper lying on his doorstep. It was folded and addressed to him in elegant handwriting. Curiosity prickled at the edges of his heart. With shaking hands, he unfolded the note, reading, "I know what you're doing, Jack. But there are things that you should know before moving forward. Meet me at the old fountain tomorrow at noon. It is crucial." A chill swept over him as the words settled in his mind. What truth awaited him? Suddenly, the stakes of saving the center had transformed. What secrets lay hidden in the shadows? Jack lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling while the whispers of the note danced in his mind. The room was still, save for the occasional city hum outside, yet his heart raced. Who knew what he was doing? What secrets could be lurking in these new twists of fate? Today had felt full of promise, and yet, the weight of uncertainty loomed so heavily over him. As dawn broke, he prepared himself for what lay ahead. The afternoon sun hung low in the sky as he made his way toward the old fountain. The path was familiar, yet today it felt charged, almost electric. He could imagine the laughter of children playing in the park nearby, the echoes of old memories contrasting with the impending question that floated in his mind. The fountain stood as a silent sentinel at the heart of the park, its water sparkling like liquid diamonds in the sunlight. Jack arrived early, pacing in the grass, anxiously glancing at every passerby. People strolled, couples laughed, and friends gathered, but none of them were the person he was waiting for. The unease twisted in his stomach like a coiled spring. Finally, a figure took shape amidst the greenery. A woman stepped into view, her stature commanding yet relaxed, her aura radiating a potent mix of determination and kindness. She wore a simple dress, but there was something elegant about how she carried herself. Jack felt his heart race at the sight. "Jack Cornwell?" she asked, her voice smooth yet firm. "That's me," he replied, trying to keep his tone steady. "You're Emily Hart," she responded, the same name from the phone call, yet now more tangible. "I'm glad you came. What is this about? What do you know?" he pressed, trying to read her expression. "It's difficult to explain over the phone. I've been following your work and I admire it greatly. But there are complications in the background, dark complications," she cautioned. Jack felt a chill slither down his spine. "Complications? What kind?" Emily glanced around, her eyes scanning the park. There was urgency in her voice as she shifted closer. Your grant, Jack. Someone close to the organization doesn't want it to happen. They see it as a threat, a challenge to their power. What do you mean? Jack's breath hitched. I can't say much without putting you both at risk. But I believe there's a connection between your campaign and certain individuals who have a stake in maintaining the status quo. They don't want change. They don't want anyone to look too closely at what really happens to the funds intended for your community. His mind raced with thoughts. Was this why they needed transparency? Were they being watched? Emily continued, I wouldn't have reached out if I didn't think you could handle the truth. But you need to be cautious. They might try to intimidate or manipulate you. Jack's resolve hardened. How do I protect us? How can I push forward? A hint of a smile ghosted across her lips. By being vigilant. By keeping those you trust close. And by using the grant effectively while documenting everything. We may end up needing legal support if it comes to that. Jack felt a surge of both fear and determination. This wasn't just about saved lives anymore, it was a battle against shadows, an unseen threat trying to undermine their hard work. Will you help us? He asked, desperation creeping into his voice. Emily nodded. I'll do what I can. But we'll need to move fast. The clock is ticking. As they stood near the fountain, a sense of purpose filled the air. But Jack knew this was the beginning of a path fraught with danger. The stakes had never been higher. What would he uncover next in this tangled web of deceit? Jack's mind was swirling with the implications of what Emily had just revealed. The crisp air felt thick, each breath a reminder of the gravity of the situation. He looked at her, trying to absorb every word, every detail. What should we do first? He asked, urgency lacing his tone. Emily shifted her weight, her gaze locked on his. First, you need to gather your records. All the information about your project. I want to see what you've documented so far, meetings, emails, any communication. We need to create a paper trail to protect you. Okay, I can do that, he replied, excitement and dread battling within him. And you need to stay off the radar for a bit, she added, her expression serious. Avoid discussing it with anyone who doesn't need to know. We can't risk it getting back to them. As they plotted their next steps out loud, an unmistakable tension began to settle in the pit of Jack's stomach. The world around them felt suddenly dangerous, vibrant colors dulled by the shadows of hidden threats. He couldn't shake the feeling that unseen eyes were watching their every move. The park, once a haven filled with laughter, transformed in his vision. He saw potential risks, threats lurking in the happy faces of children playing nearby, in the warm sun that now felt like it could scorch more than just skin. He watched as Emily pulled out her phone. Let me take your number. We need to communicate securely. Jack nodded, feeling a spark of teamwork light the darkness that had enveloped him. They exchanged numbers, their fingers brushing briefly, the contact igniting a different kind of energy. I'll reach out later tonight, Emily assured him. We should meet again soon, preferably at a different location. Agreed. Just be careful, he warned, his voice dropping to a whisper as if the very act of speaking might attract unwanted attention. A small smile broke through her facade. You too, Jack. We're in this together. Remember, truth is a powerful weapon. With that, she turned to leave, but something held him back. Emily, thank you. She paused, looking back, her eyes gleaming. You're welcome. Just know that it's not just about you. It's about everyone affected by this grant. We can't let them take that away from us. He watched her walk away, feeling both emboldened and terrified. Every step she took toward safety felt like a step into the unknown, a reminder that they were in a race against time. In the hours that followed, Jack returned home, ready to sift through the stacks of papers that felt heavier than before. Each document served as a reminder of the lives they were trying to change. He began organizing them meticulously. The clock ticked loudly in the silence, each second pushing him closer to the edge of a revelation. His phone buzzed suddenly, making him jump. It was a text from Emily. "I found something. Meet me at the old library at 7 p.m. Jack's heart quickened. That place had always been a fortress of knowledge, but now it felt fraught with uncertainty. What had she discovered? Was it good news or something that would send them spiraling further into chaos? He glanced at the clock. Time seemed to collapse around him, each minute folding into the next. Sinking dread mingled with hope. As the day wore on, he felt the pull of destiny tighten around him. What secrets lay within the shadows of that library? Would he uncover the truth that might change everything, or would he stumble deeper into danger? Jack paced his small living room, the clock ticking like a metronome in his anxious mind. The air felt electric with foreboding. With every breath, he tried to quell the tide of worry about what awaited him at the library. Would Emily's find be a lifeline or a trap? He glanced out the window, where the sun was sinking low, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple. It felt beautiful and distant, like normalcy he desperately craved but couldn't have. He pushed his papers aside, the weight of their importance pressing on him. At 6:30, he slipped on a jacket, barely noticing the coolness of the fabric against his skin. He collected his wallet and keys, casting one last glance at the disarray of evidence and hope on his table before stepping outside. The world felt different as he walked down the streets. Each familiar sight now held a layer of suspicion. With every step toward the library, Jack's heart raced faster. He fought the impulse to turn back. He wasn't just a participant in this game of shadows anymore, he was now a player. He remembered Emily's words, her unwavering conviction. They were in this together, and together they had a chance. Arriving at the library, Jack admired its structure: heavy wooden doors, tall windows lined with dusty glass. It stood solemnly against the fading light. The place held secrets in its walls. A refuge for knowledge, but also now a place of uncertainty. He pushed the door open, the creak sounding louder than usual, amplifying the quiet inside. The warm interior contrasted sharply with the chilling wind outside. Jack scanned his surroundings. He could see shadows meeting the edges of his vision, filled with forgotten stories and untold truths. "Jack?" A voice called, pulling him from his thoughts. Emily stood at the back of the nearest aisle, a stack of papers in her hands. She looked slightly disheveled, but her eyes blazed with determination. Relief rushed through him at the sight of her. "I'm here," he said, making his way toward her, each step firm yet wary. "What I found, it's big." She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "It's more than just your project. It ties directly into everything that's been happening." "What do you mean?" Jack replied, urgency flooding his tone. Emily handed him one of the papers. "Look at this. It's correspondence between some board members and outside investors. They're planning to shut down projects like yours, but it's not just yours, it's a widespread initiative to reduce funding in the community. They're targeting anything that doesn't serve their interests." As Jack read, anger surged within him. This was bigger than he imagined. "We can expose them," he muttered, energy thrumming in his veins. "Yes, but we have to be smart." Emily hesitated, her brow furrowing. "They're bigger, more connected than you think. We need a plan, one that safeguards against retaliation." Jack absorbed her words, feeling a cocktail of excitement and fear. He wasn't just fighting for his project anymore, he was part of a larger battle, and suddenly the stakes felt like they could swallow him whole. "Emily, we have to tell people," he insisted, the fire of determination blazing in him. "The community needs to know." Her gaze hardened with the weight of reality. "I know, but we have to gather more evidence. We shouldn't act too quickly. We can't become another shadow in their game." Just as that settled in their hearts, the thud of a heavy footstep echoed through the library, a sound too loud to be ignored. Jack felt his pulse quicken. What was that? Emily's eyes widened as she glanced toward the source, her face paling. I don't know, but we're not alone. The darkness around them thickened, swirling with uncertainty. What danger lurked within those hallowed halls? Would their fight for truth become a battle for survival? As they exchanged worried glances, every instinct screamed for them to move. Would they be able to uncover the truth before they became targets themselves? Jack's heart pounded in his chest, the ominous echo of footsteps growing louder. He exchanged a glance with Emily, her expression mirrored the rising dread within him. They had stepped into a world that felt both familiar and perilously unsafe. Stay close, he whispered, inching backward toward the nearest shelf. Emily mirrored his movement, her fingers curling around the papers as if they were the only thing anchoring her to reality. The footfalls halted abruptly, and for a heartbeat the silence felt suffocating. Jack strained his ears, listening for the slightest hint of movement, any sign that might reveal who or what was lurking in the shadows. Maybe it's just someone else studying, Emily said, though her voice wavered, betraying her uncertainty. They shouldn't be here, Jack shot back softly. The library should have been empty, especially at this hour. Suddenly, the lights flickered, casting shadows that danced and shifted against the walls. Jack's stomach dropped. We need to get out of here, he urged, glancing back at the entrance. Emily nodded, her own anxiety reflected in her wide eyes. But just then, a figure emerged from the darkness of the stacks tall, cloaked in shadow, his face partially obscured. Jack felt a chill run down his spine. Who are you? He called out, adrenaline coursing through him. Calm down, Jack, the figure said, stepping into the dim light. It was a man, perhaps in his 50s, with scruffy hair and an unkempt beard. He wore a wrinkled suit that seemed a size too big, as if he'd thrown it on in haste. I'm not your enemy. Then why are you following us? Jack retorted, steeling himself against the unknown. I'm not following, I'm trying to help, the man replied, his voice surprisingly gentle. You're too close to something dangerous. They can't find you here. Who's they? Emily demanded, courage bubbling just beneath her fear. A tense silence filled the air, the threat of discovery hanging heavy. The man took a step closer, urgency etched into his features. There's a group out there that'll stop at nothing to silence voices like yours. The moment you go public with what you found, it puts you both in danger. Why should we trust you? Jack challenged, unsure whether to believe this stranger or run for safety. Because I want the truth to come out just as much as you do, he said earnestly. My name is Tom. I used to work with some of those involved in the board's dealings, and I know their tactics. They manipulate and destroy anyone who gets in their way. I was part of that world until I realized the cost. Jack exchanged another look with Emily, the gravity of the situation weighing down on them. What do you propose? Emily asked, her tone lower, a reluctant curiosity slithering through her fear. Let us work together, Tom suggested. I can help you gather evidence without them knowing. It's risky, but you'll have a better chance with my guidance than on your own. Jack felt his heart plummet. No part of him wanted to involve anyone else in this mess, but it was clear that their current approach was unsustainable, a one-way ticket to trouble. Is it worth the risk? He asked Emily, searching her eyes. She hesitated, considering the implications. It might be our best shot. Jack nodded slowly. A mix of trepidation and determination swelled within him. All right. But if we do this, we do it my way. No exposing ourselves until we're ready. Tom's lips curled into a ghost of a smile, a flicker of hope in his eyes. You're going to thank me later. Just as they began discussing details, the unmistakable sound of footsteps returned, this time sounding just outside the library door. The three of them froze, tension wrapping around them like a vice. Get down. Tom hissed, and they instinctively ducked behind the shelves, adrenaline surging as they held their breaths. Who had come to find them? Were they about to face the very danger that had been lurking in the dark all along? As whispers drifted through the air, Jack's mind raced. They were on the precipice of something monumental. Would they be able to navigate this web of deceit and danger, or had they unwittingly stepped into a trap from which there would be no escape? The shadows loomed larger as they crouched in silence, hearts thumping in unison. The whispers grew clearer first, strangely soothing and haunting all at once. Jack strained to catch the words, as if they held the key to their next move. "Don't see why we check here," one voice said, clipped and impatient. "We should sweep the city. The evidence is getting too hot." Jack exchanged a knowing look with Emily. They were definitely looking for them, and this wasn't just a casual game of hide-and-seek anymore. The air felt thick with fear, the kind that wraps around you like a cold blanket, stifling every breath. "Stay low," Tom murmured, his eyes darting about. He was a veteran of the shadows, that much was clear. Jack felt reassured and unsettled at the same time. How many encounters had shaped this man's hardened exterior? Footsteps echoed again, heavy and intentional, as if the hunter had caught the scent of prey. Jack's pulse quickened. Could this really be the end? "Maybe they know we're here," Emily whispered, her voice barely a breath. "What do we do if they find us?" "We stay still," Tom replied, cutting her off with an intensity that sent a wave of urgency through Jack. "They're professionals. If we move now, they'll spot us." The static of dread settled deeper into Jack's bones. But that fear started twisting into anger. He thought about everything they had uncovered, every piece of information that felt like it could alter their lives and the lives of so many others. They couldn't just let it slip away. With a final, heavy breath, he pushed down the terror clawing at his gut. "We can't let them win," he said, more to himself than anyone. "We have to figure out a way to fight back. We need evidence, and we need it fast." Tom glanced at him, astonishment flickering across his face. "Very few have the guts to think like that in your position." "Then let us channel that fear into action," Jack pressed, the realization crystallizing. This wasn't just about them anymore. It was about revealing an entire system, about shaking the foundations of a corrupt world. The whispers grew louder now, resonating with the quiet thrumming of Jack's resolve. He shifted his body to peek around the shelf. Whatever had sparked this shared paranoia was now circling them. He needed a plan, and fast. Jack turned back to Tom. "We should split up," he proposed, though the very sound of it gave him pause. "You take Emily and go through the back exit. I'll create a distraction out front. If we're not together, they'll have to split their attention." "Are you crazy?" Emily whispered fiercely, her eyes wide. "Do you have a better idea?" Jack shot back, feeling the pressure build in the pit of his stomach. "Not without getting caught," Tom replied, weighing the risks. "But we need a better backup plan if anything goes wrong." "Okay," Jack said, heart racing as he laid it out. "If they get too close to either of us, we meet back at the diner down the street. It's a public place. If something goes wrong, don't wait for the other. We get help, and we go on the offensive." Tom nodded slowly, pride and concern mingling in his gaze. Emily's resolve hardened too as she squeezed Jack's arm, her touch grounding him in this swirling storm. "Let us make it count," Jack declared, a fire igniting within him. He wanted to shout it into the void, to declare they would not be silenced. Suddenly, the shadows began to shift, the figures advancing toward their hiding spot. Jack glanced at Emily, a sense of clarity dawning on him. They were ready to activate the voice inside them, a force that would refuse to be muffled. "On three," he whispered, his voice firm. The library may have been their sanctuary, but it was also their battlefield. As they prepared to emerge into the fray, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that their fight was just beginning. What would happen when they stood up for their truth? Would they break through, or would the danger drown them all? The threshold was right before them, and the real test lay ahead. The moment hung in the air, a fragile thread connecting their fates. Jack felt a rush of adrenaline as the whispering shadows shifted just outside their sanctuary. He could almost hear his heart beating in time with the rush of muffled steps approaching. This was at the moment to disrupt the darkness surrounding them, the library's stale air pressed down, charged with an uneasy anticipation. Tom's nod echoed Jack's silent agreement as they took their positions, adrenaline coursing through them like wildfire. Jack could barely remember the last time he felt this kind of fear. It was raw, electric, and suddenly transformed into a sense of resolve. He was tired of running. 1, 2, 3. He whispered urgently. They sprang into motion. Jack bolted from his cover, heart pounding wildly, an instinctive shout bubbling on his lips. "Hey! Over here!" The sound echoed off the walls, and Jack's vision blurred for a second as he made a beeline toward the entrance. His feet pounded against the old wooden floor as he launched himself into the open, praying that the sound of his voice would draw the shadows toward him, leaving Tom and Emily the chance to slip away unnoticed. Behind him, the whispers turned to shouts. "There he is! Get him!" The urgency propelled him forward, his lungs working overtime to pump oxygen that felt thick and constricting in his throat. He glanced back just as the first figure emerged, a tall shape, dark and imposing, closing in fast. Jack barreled toward a nearby shelf, half-heartedly scanning the titles as if one would offer salvation. He snagged a heavy book, a relic of forgotten histories, and hurled it toward the nearest figure. It smacked against the wall, a meaty thud that halted his pursuer for a moment but did little to slow the oncoming threat. "Jack!" Emily's voice pierced through the chaos, guiding him. He dashed toward the back exit, the world around him blurring under the weight of his purpose. He could almost taste freedom. With every step, thoughts raced through his mind. They shouldn't have to live in fear. They were not just fighting to survive, they were fighting for the truth that could shake the very core of a broken system. They were the ones meant to shed light on the darkness that he pushed through the door at the back of the library, emerging into the chilling night air. The streets were empty, painted in shadows, but Jack didn't dare stop to think. He glanced around, searching for signs of Tom and Emily. "Where are you?" Panic surged again, mixing with the adrenaline still buzzing in his veins. He had to trust they made it through. A loud crash sounded from inside, followed by shouting. Jack gulped. He had to keep moving. He turned, scanning the street for any sign of them. His chest tightened as he spotted a zigzag of movement up ahead, a figure sprinting toward the diner. "Tom!" Jack called out, his voice desperate, the sound echoing into the stillness. Tom spun around, eyes wide, relief flooding his features. He gestured frantically as Jack led the way, feeling the weight of their decisions pressing heavily on his shoulders. Together, they had to make it back, they had to regroup. "I thought we'd lost you," Tom managed, breathless, as they neared the diner. The familiar neon lights flickered ahead, a beacon of hope in the suffocating uncertainty. "They're after us, we need to warn others," Jack replied, urgency driving him. "We can't just stop here." As they stepped into the diner's warm embrace, Jack could feel the eyes of patrons lingering on them, curiosity piqued by their wild appearances. But inside, a new fear gripped him. They needed to gather their evidence and prepare for what was coming next. Little did they know that the real fight awaited them just outside those doors, and the shadows were already gathering again. "Are you ready to face this head-on?" Tom asked, a mixture of apprehension and determination glimmering in his gaze. Jack took a deep breath, staring toward the back entrance as if the dark shapes had come alive. They stood not just on the brink of confrontation, but at the edge of a revelation that could change everything. "More than ever," he replied, his voice low and steady. What truths would they uncover when they courageously led the charge? Would their fight for justice spark a light strong enough to pierce through the darkness? The real battle wasn't just outside, it was brewing inside them as well. Jack felt a wild mix of adrenaline and trepidation as he and Tom stepped into the diner, a sense of urgency thrumming in the air. The comforting smell of coffee and diner food swirled around them, but he barely noticed. They needed a plan and fast. "Let us figure this out in a booth," he suggested, scanning the room. Thankfully, the late-night crowd seemed oblivious to the turmoil brewing outside. They slipped into a booth at the back, pulling the laminated menus aside to free up space for their notes. "Okay, we need to focus," Jack began, his voice low but resolute. "We've faced a shift, maybe even a turning point. But now we're vulnerable. They're aware of us." Tom nodded gravely. "The key is to gather more evidence without drawing attention. We can't let them catch wind of our next steps." Jack's mind raced. "You mentioned building a network. If we can involve more allies, we might amplify our impact." "Exactly," Tom replied. "We'll find trusted community members, veterans, and activists willing to stand with us. The more visibility we create, the harder it becomes for them to silence us." As Jack wrote names and strategies on the back of their paper napkins, a flicker of hope ignited in his heart. This could work. They could forge a movement that would not only bring light to the corruption but also provide a lifeline to families like Sarah's, a chance for real change. "I also think we should go public with our findings." Press conferences, social media blasts, Jack suggested, excitement bubbling just beneath the surface. "Let us do it. But we must tread carefully. A united front is a strong one, but we also have to be smart, keep our cards close to our chest. The last thing we need is to be blindsided again." Jack agreed. With every passing moment, they could feel the shadows shifting, the threat still looming. However, for the first time, he felt empowered. They were ready to take their fight to the next level. Suddenly, Tom leaned forward, eyes wide with urgency. "If we're going to move forward, we need to meet with Emily. She's vital to what we're trying to accomplish." "Absolutely," Jack agreed as he peered through the glass windows, his pulse responding to every car that drove by, every figure that passed. "Let us reach out to her." Picking up his phone, he typed out a quick message, "We need to meet ASAP. Urgent discussion at the diner. Join us." After a few minutes that felt more like an eternity, Emily arrived, her face a mixture of determination and fatigue. She slid into the booth and wasted no time. "Did you make it out okay?" "We did," Jack replied. "But now we have important plans with everyone helping us ensure our initiative stands firm. We need all hands on deck. Together, we're not just a group of individuals anymore, we're a community." Emily smiled, and it lit up her eyes. "Let us do this. I'm ready to fight for what's right." Sipping their coffees, the trio soon immersed themselves in brainstorming, piecing together a coalition. They made note of every veterans group, nonprofit, and families within the community that could band together under the shared goal of resilience and hope. "People want to be involved," Tom added. "They need a leader, someone to rally behind." "Then let it be us," Jack asserted, the fire of excitement blazing in his chest. "Let us be the leaders they've been waiting for." As the dawn began to break over the horizon, painting the diner in soft pink and golden hues, the haze of impending danger lingered like smoke in the air. But unlike before, Jack felt a newfound determination. He recognized that change wouldn't happen overnight, but every moment they shared together only reinforced their strength, a family made not by blood, but by purpose and unity. The wind shifted outside as they finalized their strategies, stronger and tighter-knit than ever. They had embarked on an extraordinary journey, and Jack, now more than a billionaire, had become part of something much larger than himself. "Tomorrow," Jack said, looking around the table filled with commitment. "Tomorrow we rise." And rise they would, for together, they would illuminate the very shadows that threatened to suppress their future and dismantle a broken system for good. The journey had just begun. Now, if you felt inspired by Jack's relentless spirit and transformative journey, this is your moment to jump in and take action. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help get these life-changing stories out to the world. comment below your reactions and feelings about this incredible ending. You need to share your thoughts. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Don't wait not even one more second to show your support. Only true fans understand the power of spreading this message.